Okay, everyone. Well, welcome. We're so happy to be with you this afternoon. I'm Mary McCarthy with the Connecticut T2 Center out at UConn. I'm the training director and really excited about this new opportunity. Shannon?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon O'Loughlin. I'm the Educational Program Coordinator at the T2 Center, working with the Connecticut Green Snow Pro program, and we're very excited to talk with you all this afternoon.
Okay, just a little bit about our center. I see a lot of familiar faces and names, but just to give you a little bit of background about what we do at T2 is our primary mission is to provide training and technical assistance to the towns across the state of Connecticut on anything to do with transportation. And obviously winter maintenance is a big part of that. We kind of organize ourselves on 3 different primary areas: training, where we have 8 different certificate programs spanning the public works career ladder. We offer virtual and in-person opportunities. We also provide a great deal of technical assistance. Many of you have taken advantage of our safety circuit rider services, as well as our equipment loan program. And also our wonderful partnership with the Connecticut Advanced Pavement Laboratory here at UConn. So you've met Jim or Alex and had them talk to you a little bit about pavements and distresses. And then of course our third path is our information exchange services that we have, our newsletters, our listservs. We're always developing new topical web pages and web resources, tailgate talks and things like that, opportunities for you all to connect to each other and to connect to the broader transportation community. A little bit of background on Green Snow Pro and on our involvement with sustainable winter operations. We're always trying to share best practice with you all across the state and help you address the needs and the issues that arise from time to time. And so we've been for several years seeing that concentrations of sodium and chloride in our environment have been increasing. We're starting to see towns getting claims by residents of contaminated wells, public and private water sources. So, there's no easy solutions to get sodium and chloride out of the environment once it's there. So our goal is to figure out ways to use as little as possible. Obviously, public safety is a huge part of what we do. Our roads need to be passable. We need to get our folks where they need to go. But at the same time, there's some things that we can do to measure and manage what it is we're putting out on the road so that we can have as little impact as necessary. Shannon's going to talk a little bit about the action and how we're trying to coordinate efforts in this fashion.
So first, I just wanted to provide a little overview about this action in general. So this is action 314, implement sustainable snow management. This was newly added for 2023, and there's a potential to earn 5 to 50 points based on all these different activities that Mary and I are going to speak about. The objective of this action is to promote sustainable management of snow and ice, to prioritize public safety, like Mary said, but also optimizing the salt usage to protect the environment and public health. So the following are just some benefits that go towards fiscal and environmental stewardship and include protection of potable water supplies, protection of biodiversity by minimizing salinization of marine and aquatic ecosystems, and then reduction of municipal costs, but again, still supporting safe driving conditions. And one thing I wanted to bring everyone's attention to is that throughout this presentation, you might see these bolded, underlined text areas, and those are actually clickable links. So when you do receive the PDF of our presentation from Kate, you can then go through the PowerPoint and click on anything that's green, bolded, and underlined, and that will bring you to different resources and web links. So on this slide, this is just the PDF of Action 314 for your reference. So again, Mary and I are going to go through all the different activities, talk about what the activity is, as well as the information that is needed to submit to receive the points for these actions. So the first one is educating municipal staff, residents, and businesses about promoting and managing sustainable winter operations. This one is more you do, the more you earn. So you can earn up to 10 points, but there are 2 different subsections, which are 5 points each. The first, so this is a program that we offer, is if you attend a snow removal or winter operations, or sorry, if one of your staff members attend our Connecticut Green Snow Pro program, you can then earn 5 points for that staff member attending. And so to submit, you would just need the names, the position of the attendees, as well as the date, location, information about this class. And for our class, we do have flyers. So if you submit that flyer of the Green Snow Pro class that was attended by your staff, then there you go, it's 5 points. The second is the education piece for residents or businesses on how to reduce salt usage and that balance between public safety and environmental concerns. And so for this would be submitting if you have an event or workshop where you provide this education, and this would include kind of a copy of that information you were disseminating in that event or workshop. There are some resources available. You'll notice on the Sustainable CT Action, there are some links to Wisconsin Saltwise and other programs throughout the country that focus on this topic as well. There are some outreach efforts within those programs, and within our we have a winter operations webpage, where we also have resources as well. And we actually will be creating some outreach information for the residents and businesses as well that can be utilized.
Shannon, just a little interjection on that one. So, they're talking about doing something, obviously, yes, you could have a workshop, you can do a presentation, but you have these public works open houses, or you have your town open houses where everybody has different booths. Have a sustainable winter operations booth. Talk a little bit about what you all do within your departments, and then also share some flyers on what they can do. How much salt is enough for their path, for their driveway? If they're business owners, how much do they need to have on the front, on the stoop of Main Street? It's, just trying to connect with them that they too can have an impact, and let them understand a little bit more about what it is that you all do, and what you're doing to make sure you're using as little as possible.
Yeah, great point, Mary, because it's not just the roads and the parking lots and sidewalks, there's all the residential and businesses as well, and those areas that are maintained. Absolutely. So because we did talk about the Connecticut Green Snow Pro as one of that point earner, we just wanted to give everyone a little bit of background if they weren't aware of this training program that the T2 Center offers. So the Connecticut Green Snow Pro program was developed back in 2017 with a working group consisting of multiple agencies, DOT, DPH throughout Connecticut. And the goal was to provide a training to support best practices for salt application and sustainable winter operations. So the T2 Center has been offering the Green Snow Pro training class since 2018 and has provided this training to, at current, 76 municipalities through our Road Scholar program. Through this working group, through the class, we've also created some resources, one of which I briefly mentioned as that Sustainable Winter Operations webpage. So there is a link on this slide. There's also going to be a QR code. And again, you'll have access after the PowerPoint is finished as well. So within that webpage, there is information about our training class, as well as some technical resources, some handouts, some videos, some webinars, things that will help other activities within this action for your municipality. And then we also did create Green Snow Pro best management practices guides. One is focusing on roadways, one is focusing on parking lots and sidewalks, because we do have these two different training classes within our Green Snow Pro program. I just wanted to share this map of Connecticut. You'll notice that there are towns that are colored green. For the towns that are colored green, this means that one or more municipal employees attended a Connecticut Green Snow Pro class, successfully completed that class since 2018. So again, over 280 participants from 76 municipalities thus far. We've had 15 different in-person sessions, 12 different towns, these locations across the state. And then we've also had 2 virtual sessions. So we've been offering in-person as well as a virtual option, which has been really great. So I just wanted to talk about these 2 different classes. So back in 2018, the first class that was started was the Connecticut Green Snow Pro, and it was focused on roadways and municipalities. So that's been offered since 2018. So this class is called Connecticut Green Snow Pro for roadways. The audience for this class would be a winter maintenance professional that maintains roadways, whether that is a state or municipal employee, or someone that contracts with the state or municipals to then help with their roadway winter maintenance. So we wanted to keep these classes to focus on the topic, to focus on what is being maintained. So anyone that maintains a roadway, wonderful class for them to attend. We wanted to link the flyers for these classes because we do have classes upcoming this spring. And so you'll see the snapshots of both flyers. And if you click on those links, you can see there's a front and a back page. You'll notice there is with information about registration, the dates and the locations of these classes. So this roadways class is what's been offered since 2018. We were able to expand the Connecticut Green Snow Pro program in the fall of 2022, so just recently, to include a new population, a new group for us, the applicators that work with parking lots and sidewalks. So reach out to private commercial applicators and anyone that within municipalities that will maintain the parking lots and the sidewalks. So we were given some one-time funding from the Connecticut legislature to help with this effort to create this new curriculum for the Connecticut Green Snow Pro for parking lots and sidewalks class, and also create a virtual option as well. This class has been really wonderful because we've been able to reach a whole new group within the municipalities. So we've had individuals that are from Board of Education, from parks, you can have grounds, facilities, housing. So really any person that is going to maintain a parking lot and sidewalk can attend the Connecticut Green Snow Pro for parking lots and sidewalks class. So it's really been great. So same thing, that we'll have the flyer for it. It's linked. The dates, there's going to be 3 of those classes and then 3 of the roadways classes this spring with the locations on the flyer. So before we move on from our Green Snow Pro class, I just wanted to share with everyone the topics that are covered during the day. So there are 2 instructors for this class, and they go through these 7 different topics. So briefly, the first is the environmental impacts of salt use, then talking about the different chemicals, advantages, disadvantages, talking about material storage and site management best practices, then a lot of equipment and calibration with some hands-on demonstrations. So for the roadways class with the municipal vehicles, walking through the calibration of that. And then for the parking lots and sidewalks class, walking through smaller equipment like a slide-in sander or a push-behind, a walk-behind unit. So showing that no matter the size of this equipment, it should be calibrated. Calibration is really important. Then talking about pre-storm preparation, during the storm activities, and then finally post-storm, some housekeeping items like cleaning up and record keeping. So these different topics I just wanted to share because you'll see how they fit within other activities within this action that will earn your town points in this action. And now moving on back to Mary.
All right. So yeah, you can get some points from doing some training with your own folks and with educating your residents and property owners in your town. But you can also get some points by planning, managing, doing that stuff that you all do every day, but formalizing that and organizing it a little bit so that you can demonstrate what you're doing. So the second part of the action is to develop and adopt a winter operations plan. A lot of towns have winter operations plans, but what we're looking for with this action is really to to have some environmental considerations in the elements. So, to demonstrate that you are, considering environmental impact, water quality, public health, if you have a lot of wells in your town, things like that, that you should be integrating some references to current standards on anti-icing, that you're incorporating some of that into your operations, that you are adhering to material storage and maintenance standards, that you're calibrating equipment, just what is it that you're doing, and getting a little bit of detail on that. I know, folks have their plow routes and you have, how you're going to handle these different situations, but integrating a little bit of that environmental consideration into there and adjusting your plans accordingly is what folks are wanting to see for these points. Having application rate charts so that you're proving that you're considering how much you're putting out, that you're measuring how much you're putting out, and that the folks who are in charge of that equipment, who are actually, pushing the buttons and turning things on and off, that they are the ones, in charge of that in the end, and they are the ones who understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and that you have a way of communicating those limits with them. There's a couple of appendixes for this particular action, some samples to get you started. There's a sample application chart, Shannon, if you wanna, there you go. So, just a couple of examples of things that you can use in order to track some of that. It can be just a simple spreadsheet. So you have your trucks, and how much did you load up? How much did they come back with? So that you can see how much it is that you're using, and application rate charts to show, if this is the storm, this is what I'm going to call out, and this is what we're going to try and put out. This is how much we're going to be putting out per center line mile or lane mile, however it is that your operation works. And then that you're keeping track of what's happening with the storm, so that you can measure what you're doing. You can look at the circumstances of the storm and see, did we, how much did we put out? Why do we put out that much? Why did we go out that many times? So, I can only imagine what a typical winter is like as a public works director, or as somebody who's, leading a crew, especially if it's a much busier season than we've had this year. So you forget about that stuff. So if you have some of this documentation where you're showing at the time of the storm, what you used and what you did, and some notes about what the experience was like, you can look back at that and reflect and see, did we use too much? Did we not use enough? Should we have gone out more? Could we have maybe not put any out at all that time? I know some folks are dabbling in that world right now. So these are just a couple of examples that were included, but there's lots of different structures that folks have out there. If you have a structure that's working really well for you, we would love to hear about that. We'd love to get a copy of it, because we are building that Sustainable Winter Operations info page. And we're just trying to share all the good work that's happening out there, so those of you who are a little bit newer to this aren't having to recreate the wheel. Next one, Shannon. Okay, some other things that we'd like to see in the plan are a description of where the rate charts are going to be placed. How is it that your folks know what they're supposed to be putting out? And how do they know, there are some towns that are going far enough where they're even saying where to set the dials for things in order to get that rate, because hey, we all know what budgets are like, and you might have multiple systems depending on the age of the vehicle. And so in this truck, you have to put it here, and in the newer truck, you can set it up to such and such. It all depends on where you are with your fleet. Lots of different ways to get it done. Lots of different technologies available in order to help you with that, but it all based on budget and age of your equipment. So, what are you doing, and how are you communicating that to the folks out on the road? And also a description of how you're going to keep folks trained. A lot of departments will do like a winter roundup, either before or after, or sometimes both before and after the season, just to refresh folks' memories about what's in store in the coming season, what the plans are, any new equipment that you're going to be using, any new processes or policies that you're going to be following. And then a lot of towns will do something after the fact. Say, like, what did we learn from this past season? What changes do we want to take a look at for the coming season? Document that a little bit. I know so many towns are doing it, but it's not written down anywhere. So, incorporating that into your winter operations plan can be really helpful. And it's going to help get you some points. Next one. This is just a little checklist that Sustainable CT came up with, just to help you as you're going through your plan, because what you're going to want to do is submit a copy of your plan. So this will help whoever's reviewing find those aspects of your plan. So this is just a nice little checklist that they came up with, so that you can indicate what page of your plan you're referencing these different items. Third way that you can get points, you can get a lot of points this way, is to be able to document and conduct annual inspection of your salt storage facilities. make sure that they are built and maintained in accordance with the best management practices that DEEP has set out for salt storage. And, you know, we've all heard the stories about salt piles not being covered, or, you know, things like that happening, and that wash and that leaching affecting well water in the area, things like that. And so I think for the most part, most towns have made some adjustments, made some modernizations to their salt storage facilities, but there are rules and there are best practices. So we want to follow those, and you want to make sure that you are documenting that. Also, calibrating your equipment. Calibration is the primary way for you to be able to impact your salt usage, because if you can't measure it or you aren't measuring it, then you can't manage it. How are you supposed to know whether you're using more or less if you aren't checking to see how much you used in the first place? Hard to compare. So calibration and understanding each piece of equipment and exactly how much salt is coming out of there, depending on what setting you have and what technology you have, whether you have ground speed control or it's a drop spreader where you're just looking at gravity feed. You know, you really just want to know what you're doing with each piece of equipment so that you know how to make those adjustments. So if you want to go to the next slide, you can also, when you do update your fleet or equipment and you are making changes to that, you know, document that, because that can get you a lot of points as you are modernizing things or updating your fleet. Not necessarily getting new stuff, but if you're making changes to your existing equipment, things that you're doing to tweak your systems so that you have more control over what it is that you're doing. We've had some examples of folks changing out chains on their spreaders so that they have more control, more settings to be able to dial it in a little bit more tight. You know, all of that stuff, if you document it, then, you know, then that can help get you points. And also the final way on this section 3 is having a policy for requiring and documenting training for all of your operators. So not just your own staff, but if you're contracting out with folks, if you have, if you're a public works department and you have Board of Ed folks, make sure that they're getting trained if they're the ones who are doing the sidewalks and parking lots. If you're contracting out some of those areas, make sure that the contractors are required to get some sort of training. You know, obviously Green Snow Pro training is a great way to get that done. We've worked really hard on it, but there's also internal training, making sure that you're covering over all of these policies, that everybody who's putting salt out understands that less can be more, and that it's really important to you all to be using as little as you need to. And in order to get these points, you're gonna, you know, submit a statement or the strategies, documentation showing that you're implementing these strategies, copies of contracts, copies of inspection reports, copies of calibration worksheets, things like that are going to be able to demonstrate that you're actually doing this. And then as far as policy adoption, something indicating that your town council or your board of selectmen, whoever it is, your governing body, is supporting you in these efforts and agrees with the tack you're taking. So that is section 3. I'm going to turn it over to Shannon so that she can talk about getting started. But well, before she does that, does anybody have any questions about you know, what particular activities or documentation or anything in any of those actions? I know I went over it a little quickly. Let's see, you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask or put it in the chat. Okay, let's see. Oh, David Oakes, would establishing a dedicated web page on our public works page with info and tips for residents suffice? I'm going to let Kate think about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to check with another member of our team and David follow up with you, but I think at the way it's written, it would need to be some sort of in-person event But like Mary was describing earlier, it doesn't need to be just an event about salt usage and snow operations. It could be some other gathering, an event, and you're giving out flyers or you're doing something to promote this topic at an event focused on something else. That is an update that we can look into for the action, maybe adjusting it to be a little more flexible in terms of outreach. But I'll follow up with you to confirm for sure once I can talk to another team member.
Yeah, because I love that idea. I think that'd be a really powerful way of, having those resources available. The goal is to make sure people know about them and know why it's important and that you all think it's important. So how you communicate that, I think right now it's indicating in person somehow, but yeah, or like a little video for your public TV page, channel, or a little video that's a link on that page that helps people and you send that out in your community newsletter. Maybe some of those things can be considered. Any other questions? All right, go ahead, Shannon. You want to tell them how to get started?
Sounds good. So now that Mary and I have talked about all the different activities with the action, we just kind of wanted to talk about, if you guys want to start earning points, how should you do that? So the first way, that first item is the classing, attending an upcoming class. So we do have 6 classes this spring, 2 different subject types. We have Connecticut Green Snow Pro for roadways. And so you'll see the 3 locations and dates for those classes this spring. And then we have the Connecticut Green Snow Pro for parking lots and sidewalks with 3 classes and those dates and locations. Again, it's focusing on what's being maintained. So anyone that is maintaining roadways is a great class. And then for parking lots and sidewalks, the same thing, whether it's municipal, state, private contractor, board of ed, parks, etc. We're really just trying to get a wide reach of any winter maintenance professional. And then the next piece is our Sustainable Winter Operations webpage. So this is a QR code. So if you wanted to scan it right now with your phone, it'll bring you to our Sustainable Winter Operations webpage. Or if you want to just wait for the presentation to be sent out, there is a link for that as well in that presentation. But on that webpage, there is information about training. So what our training class is, what it entails, as well as how to sign up for the classes. That's all on the webpage. And then the technical resources, like I spoke about before, our best management practices guides. We have some information from Department of Public Health and DEEP for salt storage, as well as information about the wells and the chloride in the water. And then also we will be updating this webpage with resources as they come along. So we'll put this presentation on the webpage and things like that. So you'll see, we'll try to be keeping it as current as possible. So if you keep checking back to that webpage, you can keep seeing more and more resources that you can then use to help with the submissions for these points within the action.
All right.
And then this is just a questions page. So if there are any more questions that you guys haven't had the chance to ask, or if you want to talk with any of us after the presentation, this is all of our contact information, as well as our email addresses. But again, if you have questions now, Mary and I are here.
I'd love to hear what some of you are trying, or if you have questions specifically about what some of those best management practices are. Would love to hear a little bit more about what you're up to. Oh, such a quiet bunch. I know you're not quiet. I see you all.
I can jump in.
Oh, Tom, just share your example of how you changed the chain on your spreader to be able to control
Sure.
it.
Yeah, actually, I could touch on a couple points, both of which you mentioned. We do keep different charts for each truck in the cabs of the trucks, because each truck calibrates differently. So each driver needs to know where to set his control knobs on the output of the spinner, the sander controls. So each truck has its own individual chart based on those annual calibration results. That's a big key to this is calibrating annually. And then we did have a controllability issue with our application when we dropped our rates so much that it became a very spotty application where we had a lot of skips in between the drop of salt onto the spinner. was like 30 to 50 feet. It was pretty crazy. So we ended up finding some replacement drag chains for our all seasons bodies with instead of having flights every other link, they have a flight every link, which just increased the output of the salt per revolution. So it made it more controllable and reduced those skips pretty dramatically. So that's been great. Another thing that we started this year, we implemented a liquid sidewalk trial. And that we haven't obviously had a whole heck of a lot of winter to be able to try that on, but these last 2 storms we did try it and it was extremely successful, to the point where we actually we have a well in particular that we're doing quarterly monitoring, and we've run out of kind of fixes for this particular well. So next year we're going to run a pilot program with this liquid in that area on that street and also within our parking lots. But the real indicator is going to be that we still have to test this particular resident's water for contaminants. So we'll be able to physically see, hopefully, the reduction in sodium chlorides as we move to this liquid trial. So that's going to be really neat as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, I think something that everybody needs to understand too about the chloride levels and the sodium levels is, you know, how much you put out in a season all depends on Mother Nature, right? So the more storms you have and the more activities that you have to do that, you don't know from one season to the next how many storms you're going to have to fight. And it's not about how much snow you get. It's not about, you know, it's about temperature, it's about ice, it's about timing, it's all of that. So there's a lot of art to snow fighting as much as there is science. And these trials and just trying something a little bit different, I think, you know, I have my fingers crossed for really good results for you, and that, you know, you can find a way in order to address a particular problem. But, you know, we know that using liquids, either to pre-treat the solids that you have or liquids alone in brine, those are ways to use a lot less material and to get it so that it stays where it belongs and doesn't go blowing off the road. So would love to hear more about that as you move forward. Share that story. And Tom is actually one of our instructors. He provides a local spotlight portion of the Green Snow Pro training for the roadway classes, just sharing their experience and where they went, you know, from using quite a bit more than they realized they were using to really dialing it down and having a lot of control over what they're doing storm to storm. So thank you for sharing, Tom. Anybody
Mary,
else want to share?
Mary, you sound like me answering questions of my residents. How much salt you use for a storm? And I said, what's a storm? Every year. Something we tried here in summers was we have a scale next door at the transfer station. We put an LED display on the scale and left it on during storms. We have our drivers weigh in empty and then weigh out as they're leaving and then come back, you know, weigh back in. So we're getting a really accurate reading on how many pounds we're using per storm, per application, all of that. All of our trucks are not manual, but like Tom said, we do the same thing. We calibrate all our trucks every year. They all have a sheet in the truck for what setting we'll put out how much salt for each application. That's worked really well, and kind of it's a competition atmosphere to see who can get through the storm and use the least amount. And we've sent all of our guys, and I've gone to the Green Snow Pro. It's a great program. I also sent that flyer out to all of our local contractors, and there seems to be some interest. So thank you for doing that. That's great.
Yeah. No, thanks for spreading the word. And yeah, it's hard. And I think you know, that competition atmosphere, we hear a lot of stories from the towns that it's, you know, it's hard. It's hard to transition to all salt from the sand and salt. And, you know, it's like, how much am I supposed to be putting out? You're used to seeing a certain coverage when you're doing the sand salt. And what we've heard anecdotally is people were putting a lot of salt out on the road because they were still trying to get that coverage.
Right.
And what they didn't understand is that old coverage,
Right.
only 2 parts of that was salt. 7 parts of it, right, was, you know, sand, which does not melt. snow
Yeah, when
or
we
ice.
did about 6 years ago, we had, that was some of the older timers there, they just couldn't believe
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
could put that little out, and everybody we have now is pretty good about it. We've been doing it.
That's great. And but it's, I think, hard because I think that our public works crews take their jobs very seriously on the public safety side. And they, would be beside themselves if they didn't put enough out and there was a problem, right?
Right.
So, you look in the back and you got that weight, and when you're in a hilly town, and you're trying to get up the hill or, get down the hill, there's a lot that goes into battling a storm. And when you're in that truck, you're the end of line, right? The buck stops with you. So, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think as we start to document this more and we start to get better control over what we're doing, and really understand what we're doing, we're going to see those opportunities where we can use a little bit less. Thanks, Todd. Anybody else? All right.
Mary, I have a question for you and Shannon, if you don't
Sure.
mind. So having trained employees from a lot of municipalities throughout the state already, I was just wondering if you could share, I don't know, kind of like general lessons learned if a town is getting started on this. Maybe it's not something that they have. Maybe they're new to this, and sort of what would be a good starting place, or any common obstacles that they might face
Sure.
starting out.
So, I mean, honestly, the first thing is, get some training, find out what those best practices are, talk to your neighbors and find out what they're doing.
Yes.
Because I hate to see that wheel recreated. There's so many resources, and public works folks are an incredibly creative group. They figure out ways to fix problems every single day. So somebody's probably faced the same problem you have, and join our listserv if you're not on it, because then you can ask the questions to the whole community. I think calibration is probably that key thing, because if you don't know how much you're putting out, then you're really not even getting off the starting line. You're just reacting. So you can't make adjustments if you don't know how much you're starting with. Take a look at your equipment and have a really frank conversation with your drivers, because you all need to be on the same page. And the vast majority of public works folks are environmental stewards. They are really focused. They're fishermen, they're hunters, they're environmentalists to begin with in their personal lives. So they don't want to be putting more salt. Nobody wants to salt somebody's well. Nobody wants to put more out than they need to. They're just trying to do their best. So just making sure that everybody is on the same page, and that there is this environmental side of it, that we do have to watch what we're doing. We do need to know where wells are, so we can, maybe we have some sensitive areas that we need to watch out for. Maybe we have some problems that we need to address. But, just figuring out where you are, calibrate, get on the same page as your crew, and talk to your neighbors.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Shannon?
No, I think that was great. I think also just having multiple people within your department of public works attend, not just drivers, but having foremen, crew leaders, decision makers, because that way everyone's getting that same training at the same time. It can foster that conversation and making that change within your department.
And I think that that's a good conversation to have for anybody who's starting out too, is to talk to their chief elected officials, to those decision makers, the people who are picking up the phone to say we've got slippery roads, to do that, making them understand, getting them to understand how complex fighting a storm actually is, and that you know what you're doing. You've been at it for a while, so you've fought a storm or two, but get on the same page and work on it together to figure out how to best balance public safety and environmental stewardship. That's not always an easy conversation to have, but when you have some documentation and you have some numbers and you see that you are managing it, it helps. So, anything else? All right. Well, we're here for another few minutes if anybody wants to.
Hey, Mary, it's Merritt speaking.
Yeah, hey, Bart.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Another thing that we found this year with the new introductions of the saber blades, the carbide blades, we encourage our drivers to mechanically remove the snow, which helps reduce on the salt. Although we do a liquid brine, most cases prior to the storms, but I think it's a little bit easier on the pocketbook a little bit as well. The saber blades are more expensive to begin with, but their longevity on it has been incredible for at least in our community.
Now, Bart, are those the segmented?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
two
you're
different
having to
styles there. So we're virtually gotten away from the total metal, steel blades from before, just because we can get so much longevity of it. You're not spending time changing them all out. And, so to encourage our team, it's tough this year without it, without ground really being frozen, but, mechanically removing it has helped out tremendously to reduce the amount of salt.
Yeah, and we talk about that in the best management practice guide and in the training is mechanical removals, the primary. It's
Yep.
like get as much off as you can with your plows and with your equipment. And then, that way you're using that salt more to prevent, right? To prevent that bonding and to prevent anything left over versus trying to burn it off. That's not what anybody wants to do.
Well, plus with the road sensor gauges of the temperature, our community has a lot of hills and lower areas
Yeah.
there. My eastern side of the town, it melts off almost by itself. So each truck and the training of the staff to read those temperatures, and I document. I'm a snow guy, so I'm out there even in my car checking these areas.
Yeah.
So we better to guide the team a little bit as well. But
Yeah,
those road
absolutely.
sensors make a huge difference on the application rate that we can either reduce or in some cases have to increase, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
the road
sometimes.
sensors make are a big thing for us.
Yeah, that's great. And see, so those are all fantastic practices, and just organizing that into some sort of document or making sure that, when you're reviewing your plan, that you kind of incorporate some of that stuff. Take a second to reflect and think about all the things that you all are doing, every day just to best fight a storm. So many of those things are helping you already to, put less out, make fewer runs. You're doing that for efficiency, and you're doing that for, environmental stewardship.
Yep.
So great. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I have heard great things about those plows. They're finding it, the DOT's been using them for a while too. And it really helps with roads with wonky crowns and dips and things like that. Really helps you to get more contact with the road. So I'm glad you're having good experience with those.
I just saw that Susan had a question in the chat. So Susan's question is there a cost or fee for training? And Susan, great question. I did not talk about that when I talked about the different classes, but there is. It's a registration fee of $100. And so that's for either class, for the roadways class or the parking lots and sidewalks. So $100 per registry.
Yeah, and we've even been able to extend that. We're grant funded to provide, training and technical assistance for the municipalities. That extra funding that Shannon mentioned that we got last year, that helped us extend that subsidy, because we were able to subsidize some of the training costs for the towns, and that extra funding allowed us to extend that subsidized fee to private industry folks. And we've decided to extend that because we're just trying to get folks in the room to get talking about this stuff and start identifying ways to be able to reduce usage. So we're excited to be able to do that moving into the future, even after who knows what the legislation is gonna do. It's up in front of the legislature again, is to see what they're gonna do about this training and about, you know, salt management in winter operations. We'll see what happens with it. But in the meantime, we're just gonna be, you know, trying to get the word out to folks and get folks thinking about using as little as possible. Anybody else? All right, well, our contact information is here.
We have,
Mary,
sorry, we have
there's
one
one
more
more.
question.
One more, I just saw it in the chat. So from Dave Dixon, are there best management practices or practices for cleaning up when we guess wrong in those borderline storms or events that don't materialize as expected and result in lots of salt sitting on surfaces with nothing to melt? I'm thinking vacuuming or sweeping or something.
I don't know that I've seen anything documented about that. I'll have to look. We'll have to do a little bit of digging and get back to you on that, Dave, because yeah, I mean, we've all seen it, especially in parking lots and sidewalks and, you know, private parking lots, especially. You know, I understand there's you know, we've talked about the liability concerns especially in private industry, and those customer liability concerns, creating an environment where you put more out to just, you know, hedge your bets a little bit more, and then it doesn't materialize and you just see piles. Just, you know, the slip and fall hazard has more to do with rolling on you know, chunks of salt than on slipping on the ice. So I know that we've all seen it. We've seen pictures. We have pictures in our training of that, what not to do. But yeah, I don't know. So we'll have to look and see if there's anybody doing anything about that. Because it would be nice if they just went and cleaned it up, but I don't know. That's for the spring, I think. So yeah, appreciate the question. Anything? All right.
If you think of questions later, you can always reach out to Sustainable CT, or we have some of the T2 contact info up on the screen. Thank you everyone for taking some time to join us today. Thank you so much, Mary and Shannon, for presenting and sharing all of this info with us. It's been really informative, and I'm excited to see Town submit this for their next application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.